You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. Hey, when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. 'Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Hello, Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to the Same Old Dolphin Show, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Katzker. With me today and every day is my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain. Aaron, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
Here we go. The Patriots have been eliminated at the hands of your Miami Dolphins. Brain, I told you it was going to happen. You didn't have faith. You thought the Dolphins would same old Dolphins it up, and they didn't. They went out there. Not only did they win this game, they won it in a way that I think probably the way that very few people expected it to happen. I mean, the Dolphins, for the first time in 2020, and for the first time in a really long time, went out there and completely controlled the game by running the ball. I mean, I'm trying to think of the last time the Dolphins had a performance like this running the ball. It's been a long time. I have a hard time remembering what, I mean,
You got to go back to Jay Ajayi, I would think.
yeah, I mean, this was a really impressive performance from Savon Ahmed, Matt Breakfast Breida, and Patrick Laird even got in on the act a little bit as well. This was just a great performance from your Miami Dolphins, choking the life out of the Patriots by running the ball. It was so beautiful. And when the day was over, the Patriots had been eliminated, their playoff hopes dashed, their dynasty dead, and there's a new world order in the AFC East. And it is a new world order between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. It seems like it's going to be exclusively the Dolphins and the Bills for the near future. Of course, you can't really count out the Patriots because who's to say they're not going to turn it around. But the one of the other great things that happened on Sunday was that the Jets it up as well, because Adam Gase led the Jets to a huge road victory against the LA Rams, which means now the Jacksonville Jaguars, unless they manage to win another game this season, the Jacksonville Jaguars will have the number one pick. So Trevor Lawrence stays away from the AFC East.
It's phenomenal, and it can't happen to a nicer team. It's incredible. Adam Gase, they should have fired him. He's too good. He's too good
of a coach. He's too good of a coach to go 0-16. I've always said about the one thing I've always said about Adam Gase is that he's too good of a coach. Unbelievable. I'm so pleased. The Jets it up. So Trevor Lawrence is in all likelihood not coming to the AFC East, which is just absolutely fantastic. We'll talk about everything that went on Sunday. A lot of it good for the Miami Dolphins. They didn't get a whole lot of help in the playoff department, but at the end of the day, the Dolphins control their own destiny. If they win their final two games of the season, they're in the playoffs, and it doesn't matter what anybody else does. And so rather than relying on that, let's just rely on ourselves, because we've gotten pretty good at that. So we're going to get into this game against the Patriots, talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. But first, as always, a reminder to make sure that you are following us on Twitter. I am at Amplified to Rock. He is at Aaron the Brain. That's at Aaron the Brain. The show is at Same Old Dolphins. We invite you to go to facebook.com/Same Old Dolphins. Give us a like over there. Go to Apple Podcast or whatever your podcast provider of choice is and leave us a positive rating and review. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast so that it comes right to your feed in whatever your podcast catching app is. We appreciate that very much, and we appreciate all of you that have taken the time to do so already. And, of course, we invite you to make sure that you are going to DolphinsTalk.com each and every day. It is your one-stop shop for all things Miami Dolphins, all kinds of podcasts, columns, and all kinds of other stuff up there on DolphinsTalk.com. So make sure that you are visiting DolphinsTalk.com each and every day for all of the latest Miami Dolphins news and information. All right, let's get into it. The Miami Dolphins defeat the New England Patriots 22-12. And we always go over the good, the bad, and the ugly, but there was not a lot of the latter two on Sunday. It was a lot of good. And if we're going to talk about the good from this game, the place that we have to start is with the performance of this running game. I mean, this running game was just fantastic. 250 yards total on the ground for the Miami Dolphins in this game, coming to on 42 carries, an average of almost 6 yards per carry for the Miami Dolphins. Just gashing the New England Patriots all day long. Brand, this rushing attack was fire.
I mean, we said, when we did the preview show, we said this was a game where the Dolphins were going to need to run the football because the Patriots are a dangerous team to try to throw against. And I didn't think that we needed to outrun the Patriots. I just thought we needed to be close because you knew the Patriots were going to get some rushing yards and the Dolphins needed to be able to match that. What they did this Sunday was just, it was shocking because they haven't been, they've been getting better lately, and I will give them that. But I didn't think they had this in them against any kind of decent defense. And this is going to be the question. What do the Patriots look like next week against Buffalo? And what does this Dolphins rushing attack look like next week? Because I'm not sure if I believe it. But for one game, this was a tremendous job by both the offensive line, creating space for those running backs, and an amazing job by Savon Ahmed and Matt Breida of not only taking what was there and consistently finishing runs, but when they had the opportunity to cut back and make a big play, both of them managed to do that, especially Breida, on a couple of occasions. So it's really impressive. Can they do that again is my big question out of that.
Yeah, the feeling that you walked away from this game with was that I think going forward, this is what we can probably expect the Dolphins to try to do offensively. We want them to be, I think that the goal for them is going to be a team that moves the ball well on the ground and controls the game that way. And I really think we're going to see more of that going forward. It was a great display. Got to prop out the offensive line as you did. One of my favorite Dolphins highlights in a long time is that 31-yard run by Savon Ahmed. Robert Hunt on this play is unbelievable. He's taking out his man, pushing him way up the field, and then another defender comes flying in, and he just kind of shrugs him off with like a chicken wing. It was amazing. What a play.
He is a man.
He is a grown-ass man out there, and watching Bob Hunt do his thing, it was fantastic. Now, obviously, Solomon Kinley got rolled up on in this game, and he went out. We're not sure where he is at as far as his leg goes. We're going to keep an eye on that in the coming days, and hopefully we'll have a better idea of where he's at by by the time we record our preview later this week for the Raiders game. But for now, that's obviously something to be concerned about and be on the lookout for. But again, a great performance by this offensive line and the running backs. But I think the other person that you've really got to give some props to is Chan Gailey. And he has gotten a lot of heat from a lot of people. But I thought that his game plan in this game was terrific. And quite honestly, I think that he really came up with some creative and interesting play calls and some looks that we haven't really seen a lot of before. We saw the Dolphins running plays out of the pistol, which is not something that we've seen a lot of. And a lot of getting guys involved in other ways. We saw some trickery with the double reverse to Lynn Bowden Jr., where it looked like he was maybe set up on the double reverse to throw a pass, but maybe there was nothing there, so he decided to run it. We saw the hook and lateral for a 2-point conversion. Chan Gailey is starting to let a few more of those wrinkles shine through for this offense, and I got to tell you, it's pretty enjoyable to see, and I think this week we need to give Chan Gailey some well-earned praise, Brain.
Absolutely, and honestly, it's long overdue. This is always going to happen on any offense that isn't outstanding. They're going to get into lulls, and the easy guy to blame is always the play caller. And so that's what's going to happen on most occasions when the offense doesn't execute. They're going to look at the play. They're going to look at the play caller, and they're going to look at the quarterback. And right now, Tua has, I think, a longer leash than Chan Gailey does, to be perfectly honest, as far as with the fans. But Chan Gailey all year long has had some really great play design. The offense, when you really think about what the offensive coordinator's job is, yeah, it's great to have these trick plays and all these great concepts and play design. And Chan Gailey has all of those things. But really what you want is you want your team playing as a cohesive unit and looking like everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing and can stick to a game plan and nobody's freelancing. And this team looks very much like they're glued together playing for each other. And that goes, that means, Chan Gailey deserves a lot of that credit, but also that comes from the top down with Brian Flores. So Brian Flores deserves a lot of credit in that regard. But Chan Gailey all year long, I think, has done a great job with some of these play designs. Look, a lot of times when you run these kinds of trick plays and they don't work, you look really foolish. But when they work, you look absolutely brilliant. And so it's always tricky to have the right balance of a little bit of that, but not too much of it. And when you do it, it's at the right time. And it hasn't always worked out, but in this game, it worked out brilliantly.
It really did. And things were clicking. And so now we'll see how things continue to go over the next couple of weeks. And I think a lot of it can be attributed to the fact that now we're getting some consistency. Tua has been the starter, has been healthy. So, we're starting to, he's developing a relationship and a rapport, and they're starting to get a little bit deeper into the playbook. All of that, I think, is contributing to what was overall, I think, a very overwhelmingly positive offensive performance. And again, just completely dominant from the running game. Another good that we've got to talk about is he did it again. This time it wasn't an interception, but he forced another turnover. Xavier Howard did it again, forces another turnover. The Dolphins, unfortunately, aren't able to do anything with the turnover, but that doesn't take away the fact that it happened. And as of the time that we are recording this, we can now let everybody know, if you haven't heard already, Xavier Howard voted in as a Pro Bowl starter at the cornerback position. He is the lone Dolphins representative on the AFC Pro Bowl roster this year, but I mean, I don't think you could find anybody more deserving than Xavier Howard. What a year he has had, and he's still got 2 more games to go. This has just been a banner year, and again, he made another big play. He had another huge play overturned in this game. Cam Newton fumbles the ball, and Xavier Howard picks it up, runs it up the sideline into the end zone for a touchdown, but The ball bounced off of the leg of Christian Wilkins while he had a foot out of bounds, and therefore the ball was ruled dead at that spot. So not only did the Dolphins not get the defensive score, they didn't get the turnover there either, but in the second half, X came through and forced a fumble on a receiver. The X-Man just continues to be among the best in the league at the cornerback position, Brandon.
Well, he's keeping himself alive for Defensive Player of the Year. He's been as dominant as a corner can be from the beginning of the season and on. He deserves to be a Pro Bowler. The thing that I was disappointed in was that Emmanuel Ogbah wasn't on this roster, because I thought Emmanuel Ogbah was easily a Pro Bowl player this year. And I know that, in other years he might have been named an alternate and ended up playing in the game, but there's no game this year, so there's not going to be any alternates. It's you're either made the Pro Bowl or you didn't make the Pro Bowl. And it's a shame, especially when you look at who got in from the AFC. Look, I'm not going to argue too much about Joey Bosa and Myles Garrett, but Frank Clark, no, I'm sorry. Emmanuel Ogbah has had a tremendous season. Has been, in a lot of ways, this will probably get scoffed at, especially since it is my belief that Xavier Howard should be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. But in a lot of ways, the most important player on this Dolphins defense this season has been Emmanuel Ogbah, because a lot of Xavier Howard's big plays have come when there has been pressure. A lot of those times it's been Emmanuel Ogbah, supplying that pressure. He's got 2 strip sacks that have led to scoop and score touchdowns. So 2 defensive touchdowns. I would say on a more consistent basis over the course of games, Emmanuel Ogbah is making plays that really have made the difference over the course of games than Xavier Howard has. But, when you have 9 interceptions, that's hard to ignore. And that's not to say that Xavier Howard it still isn't the Defensive Player of the Year. I'm saying it's actually really close between Xavier Howard and Emmanuel Ogbah as far as who was the most important player on this Dolphins defense. And for the Dolphins defense to be, either leading or second in the league in takeaways, leading or second in the league in scoring difference, in scoring defense, depending on what happens tonight with the Pittsburgh game. The fact that this defense only gets 1 Pro Bowl player when Emmanuel Ogbah has had the kind of year he has is just complete, utter disrespect.
Yeah, well, and that's what happens when you let fans vote. And, you got to take it with a grain of salt, because these things happen. Josh Jacobs is a Pro Bowler, and Josh Jacobs has not had, some fantastic season with the Raiders. So I don't know that it's worth putting him on a Pro Bowl roster. So anyway, it's neither here nor there, but the fact remains Xavier Howard has had a fantastic year, and he was great again on Sunday. Let's move to the bad, and we got to say this, there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot of bad, there wasn't a lot of ugly, but we're going to go and we're going to cover them because that's what we do. So let's talk about the bad. Brain, what was the bad for the Dolphins on Sunday?
Look, maybe we went overboard a little bit with the right leg of God talk. Maybe we, in this holiday season, should not have been blaspheming because the last 2 weeks, Jason Sanders has missed field goals.
It's true.
And look, he's had a tremendous year, but he missed 2 field goals, and so screw him. He's not on the Pro Bowl roster. He doesn't deserve it after you missed 2 field goals in the last 2 weeks. When you're competing against Justin Tucker, you got to be perfect. You got to be. And look, if he really had the right leg of God, he would be in the Pro Bowl. But we went overboard. We need to backtrack a little bit. We need to confess our sins, get humble a little bit, when it comes to Jason Sanders, because we need him in this playoff push to be better, because he has not been at his best the last 2 weeks. So Jason Sanders being human, that is our bad.
Yeah, which tells you how good of a day it was for the Dolphins. Now, and I should also say that we are not saying that the Dolphins need to move on from Jason Sanders or anything like that. It's just, this has been
Trade
really...
him. Cut him.
That's it, trade. That's it. Get rid of him. Who's on the practice squad? Bring him in.
Has anybody ever traded for a kicker?
It's an interesting question.
I feel like Vinatieri, maybe.
You know what? I think that's right. I think Vinatieri was traded from New England to the Colts, but we'll have to
not sure.
We'll have to do our research on that. But the other bad from Sunday really doesn't really come from the game. It comes from the playoff scenario surrounding the Miami Dolphins, and it's bad in that literally everybody else that is in this playoff race with the Dolphins won. Every single team ahead of the Dolphins won, and one of the teams behind them. So the Ravens, who the Dolphins just are ahead of by virtue of tiebreaker, but otherwise they have the same record, they ran away with their game against the Jaguars, and this is the reason that the Dolphins are not being given a high chance of making the playoffs, even though they currently hold the position. People are looking down at the Dolphins' chances because the Ravens have such an easy schedule down the stretch. They played the Jaguars. Next, they have the Giants, and then they close their season. I can't remember who they closed their season out. I think maybe the Jets. But it's a pretty easy run of it for the Ravens down the stretch. And so people are anticipating the Dolphins might lose one of their final 2 games against either the Raiders or the Bills. So the Ravens won their game. The Browns won their game Sunday night. The Colts won their game by virtue of Kiki Kuti fumbling a would-be touchdown at the 2-yard line. 2 games between the Texans and the Colts this year, and both of them were decided by the Texans fumbling the ball like within the 2-yard line in both of the games. So pretty frustrating there. So the Colts won and the Titans won, and then of course the Bills and Chiefs won as well. Not that the Chiefs have anything to do with the Dolphins' playoff hopes. The Bills won their game on Saturday in Denver, which clinched the division for them. So the Dolphins are now officially only going after the wild card spot. And all of those other teams involved in that wild card race won their games on Sunday. So it really comes down to, if the Dolphins find themselves in a situation where they're looking for help is not coming. When you look at these schedules, the teams that they need to lose twice, Cleveland and Indianapolis or Tennessee, I don't see any of those teams losing 2 games. The Browns close out the regular season against Pittsburgh. I believe Indianapolis and Tennessee still have another game to play, or maybe they've already split. But either way, I don't see those teams losing 2 games. And so as a result, things are looking down for the Dolphins and their hopes here of getting help elsewhere. I guess Baltimore could always drop a game.
The Colts have the Steelers in week 16.
Okay.
And then in week 17 they get the Jaguars at home.
Right.
But
who
they
they've
could
lost
easily
to already this season.
Yeah, well, and they could easily, they're going to be the underdog going into a game in Pittsburgh next week, where Pittsburgh is going to be battling to hang on to as high a playoff seed as possible.
Absolutely.
So I think the Colts, and we own the tiebreaker over the Colts.
Yes,
so
that is correct.
We could be in a position there where we could get a little bit of help from them. The Ravens, though, look, they're gonna play the Giants, and then they're gonna play the Bengals.
They're not losing a game this season.
And they're starting to hit their stride. So they're a scary team to going into the playoffs. First they got to make the play, but they're the kind of team that can make the playoffs as a 7 seed and end up representing the AFC in the Super Bowl.
Right. Well, the one thing I'll say, and this doesn't, please don't take this to mean that I think they're going to lose, but the Giants are still technically alive in that race for that terrible NFC East division crown. They're going to need a lot of help, especially since they lost this game to the Browns. But you do have the Ravens playing against the Giants. Granted, the game is in Baltimore, but it's the Giants fighting for their playoff lives. What we don't know is whether they're going to have Colt McCoy at quarterback or if it's going to be what's his name? Daniel Jones at quarterback for the Giants. Either way, it is exceedingly unlikely that Baltimore loses that game. It's certainly possible, but I think it's very unlikely. So as we said before, if the Dolphins want to make the playoffs, they got to win their final 2 games. And, granted, there's a chance that, Buffalo finds themselves, maybe we should talk about this here before we move on to the ugly. We can talk about the idea that Buffalo might be resting starters. But the fact of the matter is the Dolphins just need to win these final 2 games. First off, they've got to beat the Raiders. They've got to beat the Raiders on national TV Saturday night in Vegas. Whether I think it's going to be against Marcus Mariota. I guess there's an outside shot that Derek Carr could play, but it sounded like the Raiders were not optimistic about that. So it's going to be Mariota versus Tua on Saturday night. Once the Dolphins get through that, then you can really start thinking about that game against Buffalo. But, the question is, will Buffalo rest their starters? And I don't know that I am so optimistic that that is something that they are going to do, because there is going to be a very real possibility that, the number 1 seed is going to be out of the way, but the number 2 seed is not going to be out of the way. And there's going to be an opportunity that, there are no fans going to be in the building, but to have the opportunity to not have to travel for potentially a second playoff game, I think that is something that would be worth playing your guys for, at least for a half of football on the final week of the season, and then just see where things are. So
if they start their players for a half, then the Dolphins should win that game.
Theoretically, but we'll see. But I just don't know that I believe that we're going to be dealing with a Buffalo Bills team that is just resting everybody on the team.
Well, I kind of do. But I think it depends. I don't think it's as much to do with Pittsburgh as it has to do with the other 2 teams. Because I think if Buffalo wins this week and they're at the Patriots, and the Titans lose at Green Bay and the Colts lose at Pittsburgh, all 3 of those games, that would be your expected result. The Bills to win at New England, the Titans to lose at Green Bay, and the Colts to lose at Pittsburgh. If all 3 of those things happen, then the Bills are locked in to going into the last week of the season as either being the 2 or the 3 seed. If they're the 2 or 3 seed, there is an extreme one. What they're playing for is only whether or not they can pass the Steelers, which, I suppose is something to play for. But in this season of all seasons, it just feels kind of meaningless. There's not going to be fans in the stands either way. It's not a discernible climate difference. It's not like a big time zone difference or anything like that. So I don't really see the huge benefit. I suppose you'd rather be at home, but I don't think it's this huge benefit. And when you look at the opportunity cost, first and foremost, injury. You don't want to get hurt going into the playoffs in a mostly meaningless game. And secondly, if if Buffalo is going to be the number 2 or number 3 seed, the Miami Dolphins, if they make the playoffs, in all likelihood are going to be a 6 or 7 seed, which means, and let's add to the fact that Buffalo wouldn't even control their own destiny going into that Week 17 game. They would need to win and need the Steelers to lose. But there's a good chance that regardless of how things turn out, that the Bills are going to play the Dolphins in the first week of the playoffs. And if that's the case, the Bills have the luxury that they could go into that game and not throw their best game plan out there, throw all their best players out there and show the whole world what they're going to do against Miami. They have the advantage that Miami needs to win that game, and Miami has to do that. And so they could play it close to the vest, force Miami to show their hand, and at the same day, still probably end up in the same spot and have a huge advantage going into the next week against the Dolphins. To me, it's a no-brainer if they're in that situation. The only thing that I can see changing it is if Tennessee and Indianapolis both win and Cleveland, I guess if Cleveland beats Pittsburgh, that's, that throws all that into play, because then, they'll be tied. But if there's any risk of them falling another spot and having to play a team like Cleveland or Indianapolis or Tennessee, then maybe they look at that a little bit differently as far as, wanting to win that game and what's at stake. But to me, it's pretty much a no-brainer. If they have it locked up, there's no reason to play their players in that last game, and considering that they're playing the Dolphins the next week.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves.
We got to beat Vegas first, because if we don't beat Vegas, then it doesn't concern us.
Right.
Because it won't matter.
Really, if the Dolphins don't beat the Raiders on Saturday, none of it is going to matter unless the Dolphins get an absolute gift from the New York Giants, and that is not a gift that I would really be counting on. So the Dolphins need to go ahead and take care of their own business like they did this week. And if they can do that, then we'll have that conversation. And quite frankly, I don't think the Bills are going to be showing their hand, even if the Dolphins beat the Raiders next week and things are pretty much set where they're going to be. Let's say the Bills lose to New England. Well, that would be the big thing. If the Bills lose to New England, I could definitely see them taking it easy week 17. But, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Otherwise, I think that's something we're going to find out day of the game, that the Bills are resting so and 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 so. That's something we'll find out right before kickoff. But we've talked about the good. We've talked about the bad. We're going to talk about the ugly in just a moment. But before we talk about the ugly, we need to talk about your ugly, gentlemen, and that is the area.
Don't talk to me like that.
Hey, I'm sorry, Brain. I don't mean you personally. We gotta talk about Manscaped, okay? Gentlemen, if things are getting a little unruly downstairs, if things are getting a little bit out of control, your holiday season is going to be a lot better if you get that mess under control. And the way to get that under control is to go to manscaped.com and pick out some men's below-the-belt grooming products. And listen, wherever you are, almost everywhere you are on the globe, if you're in Australia, if you're in Europe, if you're in Canada, set yourself up at manscaped.com. They will ship this stuff to you. And if you put in the promo code Dolphins Talk, you'll save 20% off of your first order and get free shipping to wherever you are. So it doesn't matter if you're right down the street from Manscaped headquarters or if you're across the world in Australia, they are going to ship it to you for free. So get yourself a Lawnmower 3.0 and get a very, very close shave. Set yourself up with some ball toner. Set yourself up with some ball deodorant. And also the ear and nose hair trimmer, the Weed Whacker. That stuff is going to help you out, and it's just going to make you feel much better about yourself going into the holiday season and into the new year. Maybe your New Year's resolution is to make yourself more presentable, above the belt and below the belt. Well, the way to do that is to visit manscaped.com, put in the promo code Dolphins Talk. You are going to save 20% off of your first order, and you're also going to get free shipping. So make sure that you do that. Visit manscaped.com, use the promo code Dolphins Talk, and your balls will thank you. After you're done with manscaped.com, perhaps you'll go over to youtube.com and do a search for Dolphins Talk and subscribe to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel, where some of you are watching this right now. Hello, YouTube. How are you? Thanks as always for checking out the Same Old Dolphins show on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel, get thee to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel at your earliest convenience and make sure you smash that subscribe button. Again, we appreciate that very, very much. All right, let's talk about this ugly, Brent. And again, we're really digging a little deep here, but because there wasn't a lot. But when we're talking about the ugly, we got to talk about this interception that Tua Tagovailoa threw towards the end of the first quarter, because this was a drive, a 9-minute plus drive, 15 plays. And on the 15th play, Tua, under pressure, kind of takes a step up. He steps up, but he takes a hit, and as he takes a hit, he throws the pass, whether he was trying to throw the ball away or he was trying to squeeze it into a really, really tight window. He's hit as he throws, and the pass is picked off in the end zone by J.C. Jackson. And this amazing drive, probably one of the best drives of the season for the Dolphins, comes up with nothing. And this was a very, very ugly moment in this game. But even the ugly has a positive, because later in the game, the Dolphins found themselves in a very similar situation with a goal-to-go scenario, and Tua drops back for a pass, and the pressure comes in, and rather than trying to squeeze a ball in, he steps up, he avoids the rusher, steps up, and then decides to run the ball into the end zone, turns it into a touchdown, learning from his mistake, and the Dolphins get a big touchdown and pretty much take control of the game from that point. So the interception was ugly, Brain, but what came out from it was, I think, a pretty big positive for the Dolphins.
Yeah, and I think the first half, look, the one bad was a missed field goal in the first half, and then the ugly is this interception from the first half. And that was pretty much it, because this was a very much a ball control game with long drives and not very many possessions. And so the Dolphins had 4 possessions in the first half. The first drive, was essentially was a 3 and out, but it was, Tua hit the pass that he wanted, in hitting Patrick Laird and getting him right at the sticks, and it just fell a little bit short. So we had to punt. And then the very next drive, Tua has this amazing drive. The team has this amazing drive because they ran the ball well on there. The foundation of them starting to run the ball, happened on that drive. But ultimately it was Tua making great throw after great throw and moving the Dolphins methodically down the field. And doing it, you see some 15-play drives a lot of times that are really struggles, and they're still great drives in their totality when you look at it at the end, when it's all said and done. But when you're really going through it, a lot of times it's like they got a first down off of like a penalty on a third down. They picked up a fourth down conversion. It's taking them, 3 downs every single set, every single series just to move the sticks. This wasn't one of those drives. There were a couple of third down conversions, but this was a really beautiful drive that where Miami was setting up for 3rd and shorts because the running backs were able to pick up 4 or 5 yards on first down. We were able to pick up some first downs on second down. Tua was precise. It was just a really beautiful drive. And then we get down there, and after a drive like that, in a scoreless game where that points are going to be at a premium, on a 3rd and goal, the only thing that you cannot have happen there is a turnover. And Tua has to know better. And yeah, it's rough because you're asking him to not try to make a play and not throw the ball. He doesn't know that he's going to get hit as he's releasing it. Which no doubt affects the throw, the trajectory of that ball. But still, it was a low percentage play, and it's a play that can't be made in that moment. And because of that, and because of the missed field goal, the Dolphins went into halftime down 6-0 instead of having at least 10 or at least 6 points on the board. in this game. Then in the second half, this Dolphins offense, and led by Tua and the running game, could not have been better, honestly. 22 points. They had 5 drives. 3 of them ended in touchdowns. The one drive that did not was that drive after they got the turnover where they ended up going 3 and out. And then the last drive was the end of the game. So, you're not doing anything on that drive. So 3 of those 4 drives end in the end zone. That's a phenomenal job. And like you said, it's so rare for especially a rookie quarterback to make such a gaffe on that particular play early in the game, and then later in the game in a key spot have that exact same situation come up and have the opportunity to right the wrong. And it happened like almost identical. It was incredible. And he did exactly what you would want him to do. And you know that he was out there on the bench and he was looking at the tablet and he was like, I should have run it. I should have run it. And he got in that same spot and he tucked it and ran, showed no doubt, dives into the end zone. At this point, and that, like when he did that, it was at that point that I said, I'm done with this. Like, maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick gives us the best chance to win. At this point, Tua has shown that his floor right now, well, maybe he's got a lower floor than Fitzpatrick right now, but it sure looks like an average Tua game is kind of what you're expecting from Ryan Fitzpatrick, but Tua just has a whole other level that he could go because of his accuracy, and you see that on display with the opportunities that he gives his receivers after the catch by his accuracy. And some of the throws that he made in this game, fitting into really tight windows. The fact that he's also picking up the little nuances like that so quickly. I don't know. This was we were talking before the show, and you said this was quietly a really good game by Tua, and I agree. I thought that, save for the Arizona game, where I thought Tua was, almost brilliant start to finish, but especially in the second half, I thought this was his best performance of the season, except for probably that game. And in a lot of ways, it was more impressive because of the opponent, because of the stakes, and because of the circumstances that the Miami Dolphins were essentially without their 5 best offensive playmakers coming into this game for the season. We're already without Preston Williams, who is the team's number 2 receiver. And now you come into this game and you're without Devontae Parker and Jakeem Grant and Mike Gesicki, who are 1, 3, and 4 respectively, and you're without your starting running back in Myles Gaskin, who is a really good pass catching back and an upgrade over Savon Ahmed in that role. For him to do what he did and play within himself, this offense to play within themselves, but so precise. I mean,
it was a great performance.
Tom Brady couldn't have done it better, save for that one pass.
Yeah, it was really a great performance, and he's also starting to show his ability to read defenses and audible out of plays. Like there was a 3rd and 12 situation where they were out there and they were set up for their play, and he saw something in the defense that New England was presenting, and he called the audible. And he made it a draw to Patrick Laird, and Laird goes up the middle, turns into I think a 15-yard run from Patrick Laird on a 3rd and 12, and it allows the Dolphins to convert. And it's just, that's the kind of thing that you need to have a really great feel for the game to be able to look at that defense, recognize it, and make that call. And that was something that he did, which seems like a very little thing, but for this,
it's huge.
But for this rookie quarterback to be able to diagnose what the defense is giving him pre-snap and make that call and have it turn into, a 3rd down conversion on a 3rd and long is a pretty significant play.
It's huge. It's huge because, that's one of those things that's not going to show up in the stat book, and a casual fan isn't really going to notice, and they're not going to come away with that play. They're not even going to think about Tua. It's going to be the furthest thing from their memory. It was a running play. But if Tua gets them out of a bad play and into a good play that moves the sticks on third down, that's as good as a third down completion for a first down. It's huge. And you need to have plays like that, and it's more impressive, and it shows great leadership for a quarterback to see that, recognize it, make the change, have the courage to make the change in that spot, and also the humility to make that change and not say, this is my team, it's 3rd and 8, I need to make the play. Trusting your offense and trusting your instincts, I think is just a huge part of the quarterback position. And that doesn't get talked about. It's one of those unspoken things. It's one of those nuanced things that goes into playing quarterback, where you can't always just look at the box score, and you can't always just look at the way that they throw the ball. You have to take a look at those little decisions, because the quarterback is making so many of those decisions over the course of the game that don't end up in the box score, that ultimately have a much bigger factor on whether that play works or not.
So even our ugly today turns into a positive. That's how good of a game this was for the Dolphins, as they end the Patriots dynasty. They put the nail in the coffin, and they keep their own playoff hopes alive, now moving to 9-5, guaranteeing themselves a winning season. And this is something that I said on Twitter. I believe that this Dolphins team absolutely has it in them to win the final 2 games of this season. I absolutely do. And quite frankly, I think they probably will do it. But whether or not this season is a success has nothing to do with the results of these final 2 games. Barring some sort of freak, horrible injury or something like that, whatever happens in these final 2 games, almost none of it matters, because this season is a success for the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins have taken a huge step forward as an organization. In fact, much bigger steps forward than I think many people believed that they were going to take this year. I think both of us had the Dolphins finishing this year 7-9. And
I had 8-8.
You had 8-8. So I mean, I had them finishing 7-9. You had them finishing 8-8, and they're at least going to be 9-7. So I mean, that is really, really great. They have the possibility of finishing the regular season 11-5 and making it into the playoffs, and that would be amazing. But the Dolphins are playing with house money at this point this season. They have succeeded big time. You've identified a lot of areas where you've taken big positive steps forward. I mean, every aspect of the defense has taken a step forward this year. I think we could still bolster the defensive line a little bit more, and we can probably add a little bit more depth at linebacker as well, but your secondary is elite. On the offensive side of the ball, you've identified we don't have any skill. We need to upgrade all of our skill position players. I see people making arguments that maybe Savon Ahmed and Myles Gaskin are the running backs that we need. I disagree with that. I think if you can find a cheap running back in free agency, or you can draft a running back, that's the way to go. I still think you need to upgrade.
I don't think they need
position.
to go the free agent route.
No,
I don't think they need
not,
if they're.
But we know that they need,
especially if it's especially the cheap free agent route. Like,
sure,
if you're going to go,
they already did that with Breida.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've seen that with Jordan Howard and Matt Breida.
Sure.
I would say that at this point, if you're going to spend free agent money on a running back, it's got to be just a stud that you're bringing in, that that you have got confidence this guy is going to be the lead guy for the next 3 years. I think it's way more likely that we keep, Gaskin and Ahmed and even Patrick Laird and draft a running back in the first.
Yeah, I think that's
in the first 2 rounds.
Najee Harris or Travis Etienne, these are guys that I think a lot of Dolphin fans have their eyes on, and there may be other guys in there as well. But I think what we've identified is that the Dolphins do need to draft or add depth at running back, trying to find a legit starting running back. They also need to upgrade wide receiver, and that is a route that I think we will absolutely see the Dolphins sign a free agent wide receiver as well as draft one, if not multiple wide receivers in the draft, because that's an area where the Dolphins need to upgrade. But one thing that we know this season, because Tua got in and because Tua played, I feel pretty good that this team doesn't need to go out and draft a quarterback early in the draft. Now, would it surprise me if the Dolphins took a quarterback in the 5th, 6th, 7th round of this draft? No, not at all, because obviously you need to have somebody else. You need to have a backup there, and maybe you can get Ryan Fitzpatrick to hang around for another year, but I think the Dolphins would need to have somebody behind Tua Tagovailoa that isn't Jake Rudock or somebody like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if they took a quarterback late in the draft, but that would be more of a depth move as opposed to a backup plan for Tua kind of move, because I feel very confident at this point that Tua is the franchise quarterback that we've been looking for. And we're going to have this, there are going to be people every time he has a bad game from now until the end of his career, you're going to have some guy out there who's like, this is not the quarterback. This is not the guy. No. He's just Ryan Tannehill. He is already showing much more sign of being the guy than Ryan Tannehill did at this point in his career, is what I will say.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, let's pump the brakes a little bit, because when Tua threw that interception in the first quarter of this game, on Sunday. And I even tweeted out there at halftime, I thought Tua overall had a really nice first half. He just made one really bad throw that you can't have back. And a lot of times, in a game like this where possessions were at a premium and therefore points are at a premium, you can't make that mistake. And then, at the end of the half, he did what he needed to do to get the Dolphins in scoring range to get a field goal, and they missed the field goal. That said, he did throw that interception.
Sure.
And you couldn't go into that second half. I went into halftime thinking, all right, Tua's looked really good, but he's still got to prove that he can finish. And he needs to play better. He needed to play better. I don't think we've gotten to the point where, at least I haven't. Maybe you have, but I haven't gotten to the point yet where, when we go out there, I know Tua's going to have a good game. And then when he has a bad game, it's the exception to the rule. I haven't gotten to that point yet. And until we're at that point, I don't think it's fair to say that we know that we've gotten our franchise quarterback. I feel really good with what I've seen this year from Tua, and I feel like we have seen enough and we've seen the growth in Tua that we know we're not drafting a quarterback in the first 2 rounds of this year's draft. That it's not something that we're thinking about. But I don't think we've gotten to the point where, we think Tua is going to be Russell Wilson or Drew Brees or Patrick Mahomes or anything. I don't think he's done enough to prove that. I hope that he will. I don't think there's really anything he can do the rest of the season to do that, because I've seen enough quarterbacks have really great years, whether it's their first year, their 4th year, their 8th year. I've seen enough quarterbacks have a really great season and then regress the following year and never hit that peak that they had in that one season. So I don't think there's anything that Tua can do to get us to that level now, but he can build the foundation. And what he's done is he's done enough for us to feel confident that we may have a franchise quarterback. You could sit there and you could say, oh no, I believe Tua's the guy and he's definitely going to be a franchise quarterback. And you might be right. You know, 3 years from now, you might be pounding your chest and saying, I was the first to know that Tua was the guy. But honestly, you're just rooting for it at this point. You're being a homer. He's been solid. He's been good at times. He's had some flashes of brilliance, but I don't think we're there yet where we can say Tua is the franchise quarterback. We have no doubt about it. Because if that was the case, you'd be saying, well, then this season isn't a success if we don't make it to the playoffs.
Well, let me tell you this.
I'm sorry, if Tua is the guy, and Tua is like this great franchise quarterback, then this season is not a success if we don't make the playoffs, because he's got a chance to carry the Dolphins to the playoffs in the last 2 weeks.
That's true. And he may very well do just that. I mean, and literally carrying them, because he doesn't have a lot of skill position players around him at the moment. But I will say this. Maybe it was just Chan Gailey out scheming Bill Belichick. But this New England Patriots team made Justin Herbert look like a fool when they were matched up with the LA Chargers. The guy that everybody is talking about, he's the best looking rookie quarterback out of the class, out of Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Herbert. Herbert is the guy that's having the best season. And quite frankly, it's probably difficult to argue with that Herbert is probably overall the one that's having the best season overall as far as performances on the field. Although, I mean, you could argue, you know, you look at this, Tua 6-2 as a starter. Hey, whatever. But Justin Herbert was completely shut down and fooled by the New England Patriots. And Tua went out there and put on, you know, not to say that he went out there and was Joe Montana or Dan Marino or anything like that, but he went out there and he managed the game beautifully against a tricky New England defense that a lot of people say is overrated, because a lot of people are considering what the Patriots used to be on defense as opposed to what they currently are. But either way, the team that shut out the Chargers struggled to stop the Dolphins and Tua on Sunday. So you got to feel good about that. Regardless, we find ourselves now with 2 weeks to go, knowing that the Miami Dolphins can win 2 more games and be in the 2020 NFL playoffs. And that is pretty fantastic. And no Dolphins fan will argue against that. And quite frankly, we're still going to end up with a top 10 pick because of the Houston Texans. So
it might even be a top 5 pick.
And there is an outside chance that it could be a top 5 pick. And so if you really want it to be a top 5 pick, you got to really root for the Bengals actually to beat the Steelers tonight. Because if the Bengals somehow beat the Steelers and then the Bengals beat the Texans next week, that pick gets even higher.
If the season ended today, the Dolphins would have what? The number 4 pick?
I believe it would be the number 5 pick or 6 pick at the moment. Let me pull up the Tankathon rankings, vamp a little bit. I'll take a look at the Tankathon standing.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, they're sitting right at that number 5. Last I checked, I think it was actually the number 4 pick. I think they're there with another team at 4 and 10, and then there's just a slew of teams at 5 and 9.
As it stands right now, the Dolphins have the 6th pick, because Houston, Carolina, and Atlanta are all 4 and 10, and Houston has the toughest strength of schedule because they're in that division with Tennessee and Indianapolis. So we need the Falcons and Panthers to win games. But like I said, if Cincinnati beats Pittsburgh, and then I believe Cincinnati has Houston on their schedule coming up here. Next week, week 16, it's Cincinnati at Houston. So if Cincinnati can get on a 2-game winning streak here, that would have the Bengals at 4-10-1, and the Texans would be 4-11. So that would put Houston definitely in the top 5, and then it depends on what Carolina and Atlanta do. Let me just double check that those two teams aren't playing each other again. They're not. Atlanta, I could easily see Atlanta losing their final 2 games of the season. They're at Kansas City and at Tampa Bay, so I don't know that they're winning another game. Let's look at what Carolina is doing here. Carolina is at Washington, which is losable, and then playing the Saints at home in the season finale, which is obviously a losable game, but the Saints will likely not have a lot to play for. They should have the division wrapped up at that point. So anyway, there it is. So, I mean, the best chance for the Dolphins getting into that top 5 with that Houston pick would be the Bengals beating the Steelers today and then beating the Texans next week. As we record right now, Giovanni Bernard has just scored a touchdown for the Bengals to put them up 9-0 over the Steelers, who have been terrible so far in the first half of this game against the Bengals. So, hey, listen, anything is possible. Of course, by the time you're listening to this, you know the result of that game already, but here we are. This is the kind of thing that we're rooting for. It's kind of exciting because we're rooting for the Dolphins to win their final 2 games to get into the playoffs while we're rooting for other teams to lose so that we can get a higher draft pick. This is way better than last year when we were just kind of, if the Dolphins lose, we get a higher draft pick. This year, if the Dolphins win, we could still end up with a higher draft pick. It's pretty fantastic. But I think that's going to wrap us up for this one. So let me just give you an idea of where things are going to go this week. We are going to record a day earlier than usual this week. Typically, the Brain and I record on Friday evening and get the show out to you on Saturday. Of course, this Friday is Christmas. So we are going to record Thursday afternoon, get the rare afternoon recording session of the Same Old Dolphin Show, and we will release that for you Thursday evening or Friday morning. So you will be able to open the presents, drink some coffee, and sit on the couch watching NBA basketball while listening to the Same Old Dolphin Show. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. We'll get it out to you a day early because the Dolphins are also playing a day early, which is pretty exciting as well. And as far as how things go after that, the final week of the season schedule is going to get a little wonky because the Brain and his wife are taking a little trip. So we'll get all that figured out, but we'll get it taken care of. We're not going to worry about that yet. What we're going to worry about right now is having a good week. The Dolphins are right in the thick of things. Let's find out what's going on with Solomon Kindley. Hopefully he's all right. Dolphins waived Antonio Callaway today, which is a story that I'm interested in getting to the bottom of. Some people, some of the amateur Twitter sleuths are suggesting that Callaway has been waived because maybe Preston Williams is coming back for the final couple of games of the season. Dolphins have been very quiet about Preston Williams and his status going forward, so that's certainly a possibility. It's also a possibility that Callaway, who has a history of getting into trouble off the field, maybe had an issue. I don't want to speculate or anything like that. I just when you haven't heard anything, and then suddenly Callaway was used very little in this game on Sunday against the Patriots, and then he gets waived quietly. It makes you wonder if there isn't something going on there, especially because he was on the roster when they decided to bring back Isaiah Ford. Who knows? But anyway, that's something that has happened. Yeah. We'll get into that when we need to get into it. Either way, right now, he is not part of the team, and he's not part of their plans, at least as far as we can tell. We will be back in your ears either Thursday evening or Friday morning with our preview show for this big game against the Raiders. I love it. I mean, it's 4 consecutive big games. Every game has been so big, and this is the kind of thing that we need to get used to as Dolphin fans now, because this is it. This is what our team is going to be doing now, is playing in big games, because they're a team that is going to be a competitor, and they're going to be contenders, and I think that is a very good thing for all Dolphin fans out there. So even if you're one of the cynical fans who thinks this team is the same old Dolphins, and listen, I've been saying it for a few weeks, I don't think these are the same old Dolphins. I mean, the way they won that game on Sunday, to come out and have a bad start and then turn it around and end up completely controlling the game, that's not same old Dolphins. That was a pretty exciting thing for them to do.
Well, here's the thing. I even
tweeted
it out.
Are you all in?
So I'm cautiously optimistic, but here's the thing. As great as this performance was, it would be extremely very same old Dolphins. It would be extremely same old Dolphins.
Extremely very.
If they came out and lost to Vegas. Yeah, extremely very. It would be extremely very same old Dolphins if they came out and lost to Las Vegas and just, crap the bed. And if they do that, then it erases how great you feel. What truly defines a great team, even a good team, even a really good team, is that there is a consistency from week to week. It's not you won this big game and then you lose a game that you're supposed to win. You're supposed to win the games that you're supposed to win and, play really well in those other games that are either 50-50 or you're maybe the underdog, and then you win a couple of them. And what we've seen that from the Dolphins this season, but the last time that I was ready to go all in, we lost to a Denver Broncos team that's now sitting at 5-9.
Yeah. So
that just got beat by almost 30 to Buffalo.
Right.
So I'm not there yet. They need to show that they're not just going to revert back to what they were, because I'm not necessarily sold that they can replicate that offense, that performance on the ground. Because if they don't replicate that performance on the ground, I don't know if Devontae Parker or Jakeem Grant is healthy. But if they don't run, you were right when you said before, I think this is very much what the Dolphins are going to hope to be in the future. But there's no guarantee that they're able to do that on a week-to-week basis at this point. And so if they're not able to do that, I think it's very easy. I could very easily see this Dolphins team struggling to put up 17 points against the Raiders, and the Raiders are too good on offense to only score 17 points against. So, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think, I'm not going to, give any spoilers as to my pick on Sunday or on Saturday, because we'll save that for the preview show. But I feel good about our chances going into this game, but I'm not at the point yet where I'm all in on this team and I'm sold that they're not the same old Dolphins. I will agree with you at the end of the day. When I look back at the season, even if we lose the last 2 games of the season, when I look back a few weeks after, I'll probably say that was a really good year and I feel really great about the Dolphins going forward. But in the here and now, when they win games the way they won this game on Sunday, the expectation rises. And you can't win that game and not be brutally disappointed if we lose next week to Vegas. And I'm sorry, if you lose that game to Vegas and then you beat Buffalo at the end of the season, and you go back and you look at that game and you say, hey, if only we would have beaten the Raiders, we'd be in the playoffs. It's hard to look at that as an unmitigated success.
Sure, and of course there'd be disappointment, but like I said, big picture, when you look at it from the macro level, the season is already a success. But yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into the Oakland or Vegas. Geez, I said Denver, then I said Oakland, where there's not even a team, and then I said Vegas. That's clearly time to wrap it up. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to wrap it up. We'll be back on Christmas Eve / Christmas morning into your earballs. For now, take care. Enjoy your final few days of Christmas and holiday shopping. We'll be back with you later this week. Take care of yourselves and each other. We will talk to you again next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Go Dolphins!